I think it's ridiculous that we waste intelligent brains on trying to fight for equal pay when we could be solving much bigger and important problems together.
So you want to make an impact. You're thinking about starting a business, sharing your voice. How do women do it that handle motherhood, family, and still chase after those dreams? Well, listen each week as we dive into the stories of women who know. This is Call Me CEO. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Call Me CEO. This is your host, Camille Walker. And today we are talking about equality, joy, and the tech world. Laura Casselman is the CEO of JVZoo and has just come out with a book called Trust Your Increments, all about going through the phases of your life as a woman and finding joy within it. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was just telling you that I brought your book with me to Mexico. And when I was on the airplane, I was like, okay, right off the get, I loved that your approach to success for women is that it comes in phases. We don't attack everything all at once. And that there's some work we need to do for this generation so that our daughters and granddaughters are not fighting the same battles that we are now, which is such, yes, I'm like, that's what this podcast talks a lot about. And I love that you hit the nail on the head. So tell us a little bit, first of all, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about how your story began and how you got to the place where you are now.
Sure. So I'm Laura Casselman. I grew up in a one stoplight, small town, middle of nowhere, South Carolina. And I had 3 television channels. And on those 3 TV channels, I saw the Radio City Rockettes dance in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and declared that I would be a Rockette. And I think that determined a lot about my life. One is that I came from a small town where your word was everything. So I had said I was going to do it, and I was then going to do it. My word mattered. I followed through every choice I made from 3 years old till my first performing job at 16 until the Rockettes hired me at 25 years old was to make me a Radio City Rockette. And I've learned a lot about, I think a lot on the things I'm going to say. And when I say them, I will accomplish them. Also, I think a big stepping stone for me is that I realize now that nothing is impossible. Everything feels so big and grand and mighty. And I have big dreams just like everyone else does, but nothing about me is special. The only reason I accomplish all the things that I have accomplished, and when I look at my resume or someone lists out all the things I've accomplished, it seems super impressive, but not one thing about me is special. I just break everything down into steps and I follow the steps. I check them off my list all the time. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, first of all, amazing. And second, I want to rewind a little bit to that determination, and you do what you say you're going to do. Is that something that was instilled with your parents, or tell me a little bit about your upbringing, because I think we need to unpack some of this, and there's a lot of secret nuggets of gold in there. I'm like, let's talk about that.
So I think both my parents and community. When I say I grew up in the middle of nowhere, what I mean is nothing puts the town that I'm from on the map. It's a place called Clio, South Carolina. Like I said, there's one stoplight. There's nothing significant there except for the people. And I not only had my parents who, instilled values and morals within me, but the community supported each other. It was not unusual for me to drive up to the gas station, pump gas and not pay, and to say, put it on my dad's tab. That's not a normal thing in today's society, but it was normal for Clio. And everyone looked after each other. My parents knew that if I wasn't with them, if I was doing something wrong, someone else was going to correct me really fast. And it was a great community to grow up in. And your word mattered there. And you had to stand behind what you said. And people built everything off of trust. And so I do think, yes, that played a massive role in who I am today.
I love that. That does sound very Nicholas Sparks. We were just saying, one of my best friends said, I think I want to live in South Carolina, but I don't know why. I think it's because of Nicholas Sparks' books. And that sounds very Nicholas Spark-esque of
Mhm.
what a beautiful way to grow up. And in your book, you
Absolutely.
talk quite a bit about being able to shift between dancing to corporate and being a performer, but also being succinct with what your plans are and executing a plan. Let's talk about discipline that it took to get to that Rockette level. What did that journey look like?
So discipline, I feel like, was instilled in me from taking dance. My parents put me in dance at the age of 3. I had a natural talent. There was a time that I wanted to quit only because my sister, who was older, who did not have a natural talent at dance, wanted to quit and was allowed to not re-enroll. My parents, one, were like, you're not quitting. You're very good at this. But also, we're very big on if you start a season, you finish a season.
Yeah.
You gave your word, you signed up, you can quit at the end of the season, but not before then. So, and then my mom talked to me a lot when I just wanted to quit, just because my sister was, about like, you're not making your own choice. You're following a pact here. You're following because your sister's older. You need to be making your own choice, and you need to recognize where your strengths are. And so that was a big lesson. But also, by the time I was in the 4th grade, which I don't even know what age that is now off the top of my head, but I had auditioned and was in a traveling performing group. And in order to perform at all of these events and competitions that we did, we had lists of costume pieces. And if we forgot one piece, we were not allowed. There was no honorable mention. There was no thanks for showing up today. It was, you have everything that's on your list, or you didn't show up prepared, and we will reblock right now, which taught me 2 really valuable lessons: be prepared and respect everyone else, but 2, how to reblock and pivot at a moment's notice, because we did. So I learned, both as a dancer or performer, how to instantly change the dance and everything I've been practicing, but in life, how you can get handed a lemon, and guess what? You can still make great lemonade.
I like those. I grew up dancing too, and you're right. If you don't show up with that hair bow or that one piece, like, it's sorry, like, you're out, and you really have to readjust and make it happen on the fly. And that really makes you quick on your toes. Do you think that that's helped you as an executive as well?
Absolutely. And I think not only that, but any team sport that your child can play teaches them so much about life. Unless they are born into generational wealth, they're going to have to work. Mm-hmm. And working is most often a team sport. It's either the team that you join or the team that you build. And if you don't know how to work together, it's far less likely to accomplish big goals.
Girl, you could frame that. That was really beautiful. Whether you're part of a team or you lead one, it is a team sport. That is so good. I hope y'all are writing that down, because I am thinking that is something I would love to tell my kids. Now, you are a mother. You have a young one. Tell us about your daughter.
Oh my goodness. Like most parents, I think my kid is amazing. She's 2.5. She's full of spunk. She's very intelligent. I keep telling my mom that I hope she doesn't peak at 3. But she's very strong-willed. She knows her mind. She's already not afraid to speak her mind, which I love, because I think our children in today's world need to be able to speak up, and they need to know their own minds and their own opinions, because we live in a very different world from the world I grew up in. And while there's so much convenience to these telephones and smart devices, there's so much danger in them. And there's so many other people's opinions coming at them 100 miles per hour all day long that our children don't even have time to think today. So being a woman in tech, I am very big of keeping my child off of tech.
Let's dig into that a little bit. So as you were going into the tech industry, was that something that you had a passion for as a young person, or how did you grow into that role?
That's a interesting, funny, maybe story. I was dating the man that I ended up marrying when I was 16. We started dating, and our dates mostly consisted of me going over to his house, him saying, I need 5 more minutes to finish this program I'm working on, me sitting behind him, watching him code for 3.5, 4 hours, and then me saying, that's my curfew, gotta go. And absorbing a lot more than I realized. And so, right. I didn't necessarily realize. I ended up marrying him, but while we were engaged, I also didn't want to be the dumb girlfriend. I was a dance major, but I wanted to be able to talk to him about his difficult job and what he was doing. And so he would get assigned something with his job that says, hey, you're going in and you will be an expert in 2 weeks at whatever was new at the time, Java beans or whatever. And I wanted to hold thoughtful conversation. So being a broke college student, I took, textbooks are expensive, especially computer textbooks. So I had like $100 that I kept going to Barnes and Noble. I would buy one book. I would come home, read it as fast as I could, take as many notes, and then go return it or exchange it for another book. And I did that for about 2 years, constantly taking notes and conversing with him about what he was doing at work. So I guess I was eventually found out at the Barnes and Noble, but the manager told me because I didn't break the spines, he would let me continue to do so. But then it was kind of an easy transition from the dance world into technology, even though it doesn't seem natural. It was for me.
That is so cool. I mean, talk about tenacity to be like, well, I've already graduated. I've done this other thing. I'm going to learn this on my own. And to do that, that is so cool. What was it about tech? Did you fall in love with tech? I mean, obviously, if you kept doing it, or do you feel like it was like, oh, I've got to learn this so I can communicate with my lover and that's it? Like, what was it?
Yeah, so I am more of like, I love knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's who I am as a person. I don't need to know it and be an expert on it. But even if I'm sitting, say I go to a work event or even like a friend's party, maybe I meet someone that's talking about something that's new to me. I might ask thoughtful questions just by, being curious, but then I will learn things that make me want to know more. So I'm the person that's up all night on my phone, like Googling a million different things and running down rabbit holes because I'm just intrigued. Yeah. So for me, I think I'm naturally curious. I complained about our smart devices earlier, but one of the great things about our smart devices is there's so much knowledge at our fingertips. And so I like to use that to my advantage and just, Trivial Pursuit it. Like I feel like, hey, let's play a game of Trivial Pursuit. I've got lots of useless information stored away.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, I was telling you earlier before we got on the call that I went to a conference this week from a group called it was actually called Moms in Tech. And they have programs it's a nonprofit program where you can take courses on coding and experience. What do they call it? Like website experience, WebEx or UX. There you go. And it was so fascinating to me because it was a group of women who were trying to find their way back into the workplace and were doing the path of tech. And before the event started, someone stood up and said, when you go in for an interview, make sure that you are asking the right questions about the progression for women in the business. Are there women in positions of authority? Is there free, what's the word? Is there a free credits that you can take, or will they reimburse you if you keep learning, if you're getting some like a scholarship or reimbursement? Yeah. And another question that they asked that I thought was really clever is ask if you can speak with a woman who works there. And do they feel like there's advancement opportunities? So it was so interesting because in the tech world more than ever, that was laid down as a foundation that you have to really put your work into making sure that you're going and interviewing at the right places to be able to advance. And so I'm really curious about your experience with that and how you were able to advance in your career as well as helping other women to do the same.
Yes. So, I mean, I was super fortunate, and I talk a lot about this in my book, coming into JVZoo, which is the company that I have been the CEO of now for what seems like an eternity, even though we're only 12 years old. I was super fortunate that the owners of this company saw my worth. I came in as a consultant. It was less than a year later, I was the COO, and less than another year, I was their CEO.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, they appreciated that I wanted to learn and that I constantly told them, I want to make you lazy. I want to make you lazy. Let me do the work. Let me do it. Now, I'm also open about that I am, in the history of the company, the lowest paid CEO, even though I've accomplished things no other CEO before me did. So give and take there. One is that one of the former CEOs was an owner. And being an owner, it's a little different, your paycheck. So I accept that. And, that's just part of small businesses. The other thing is that I am not unsatisfied with my pay. I feel like I am paid higher than the average, actually. I'm paid well for what I do. I think people in the past were grossly overpaid, and in particular because they were egotistical men who thought they deserved a lot more than they did and who didn't accomplish anything compared to me either. So I think that's one thing women have to not feel badly about. Asking what we're worth, we have to stop feeling badly about that, because there are these boys asking for 10 times more than what they are worth and not even feeling an ounce of shame. So asking what we're worth is the bare minimum we should be doing, ladies.
I agree with that. And I'm curious what your advice would be to helping someone to understand what their worth is, or even knowing what to ask for.
So do research. Always go into your interviews or for your meeting asking for a raise prepared. You need to do research, and you need to know what the norm is, the normal range for the job title and the workload. You need to be prepared with, if you are currently with the company, your contributions to the company thus far, and how those things have either helped to increase profit, productivity, or morale. I don't care what it is, but what has your contribution done to assist the company? Because if you aren't thinking of those things, for me as an executive, then you're just a cog in the wheel, right? And I can pay bare minimum for a cog in the wheel. I want to pay someone who is thinking, how does this benefit the company? How am I helping the company grow? So those things really matter for me as an executive. But then finally is that you need to be emotionless in this negotiation. Leave your emotions at the door. I don't care if you go home and cry and scream and yell, but this conversation does not involve your emotions. So come in prepared. Do not feel shame in presenting what you have brought to the company, or for saying, I've done my research and it appears that I am currently paid about $10,000 a year less than the going rate. These are my contributions. This is why I feel that I should be deserving of this pay. And if the person says no, then you need to know right then and there, you should come in prepared fully. So you need to know, am I leaving today, or am I asking them, would you be willing to work with me on a 90-day plan where today we lay out clear expectations of what you need to see in 90 days for in 90 days you to give me that raise? I'm a big fan of the 90-day plan. I've done it myself to employers multiple times. So if an employer is not willing to say, here's what I need to see and make reasonable expectations, then you know where you stand with them. So that's your time to then say, even if you're going to take the next 90 days to then find your next job, that's your time.
Yeah.
That is a two-way street.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a really interesting and very clear formula, because I think that taking what I've seen, and this is really interesting because I am married to someone who is running a business with many, many people. And, on my side where I run a team that's small, but what I've seen and what I think is really interesting about what you've said is being prepared with the facts, but then also leaving emotion at the door, because too often I have seen people kind of lose their heads a bit with the negotiation. And nothing can be accomplished if you're in a fight or flight emotional state. Like that energy is just not going to produce the results that either of you are looking for. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And also, that's the one thing that consistently gets used against women is our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that a lot in the book as well. I can be in a heated meeting with men and a man can say, ugly word, this, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And I can say the exact same thing. And whoa, Laura's lost it. It's totally fine.
Yes.
I say the exact same thing. Laura's lost it.
That is so true. That is so true. I'm just hearing the lyrics of The Man from Taylor Swift. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, like yes, you love her.
Love that song.
Yes. And that song, I have 3 sons and a daughter, and I listened to that song, and one of my sons said once, like, this is like a man hater song. She's a man hater. And I'm like, no. This song is saying that we can be saying the exact same things, but be perceived differently, because women often get labels of being crazy or unhinged or whatever it is, using the same language or behavior. And
that's right.
Not that I said it exactly like that to him, but that kind of messaging. So I love that you are bringing that to the forefront, and you talk about that in the book too. And one of the parts, I want to see if I can find it quickly, because I bookmarked a couple things. Okay, here it is. It says, we are still 200 years behind equal pay for women. And that just blows my mind. How can we still be penalizing women for giving birth, or even the very threat of giving birth due to their age? Employers are thinking, what am I going to do when this person needs time off? What's really interesting about that to me is when I was interviewed for a management position or as a mortgage broker, the person interviewing me said, so what happens when you start having babies? And this was in my interview. And I was like, which is like so illegal. I could have turned him in, but like, that's honestly what a lot of them are thinking. And the disparity of even our ability to have those conversations and that fairness is just, it's really sad. And I love that in that part too, I'll go back to it because I really loved it. You said something to the effect of, and I don't know if I can find the exact word. It was something like, if we want the human race to continue, women need to continue having babies. So how are we going to create an environment where this is where we support them? So let's talk about that a little bit, about your passion for that. And then also best practices for people who are listening that think that could be the best way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, we're in a really difficult time for women. We were getting closer to equality. The pandemic happened. The majority of people who had to lose their jobs were women, willingly at the time, because someone had to stay home and homeschool their kids. Well, everybody was home, but someone had to take on the responsibility of making sure their kids were getting their education and taking care of them and keeping them out of the room that the other person was working in, et cetera, et cetera. And women are naturally better caregivers. And then women also took on the burden of taking care of their elderly parents. And so we saw the majority of job loss happen to women. Yeah. Then we saw a new type of thing happen when people started going back to work. And that was younger generations. Females said, I no longer want to try to break through this glass ceiling. It's unfair. It's impossible. People have been trying forever. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to walk out the building, which I understand. Wholeheartedly, I understand, but it also breaks my heart, because what it means is we will become nowhere closer to pay equality, and that we will be stepping further and further back, and that we are going to have to start over in this whole thing again, and that what our grandmothers have already fought for, we are going to step back and start this fight over. So I refuse to give up the fight. I'm going to stay here and stay steadfast in my fight. And also, it's also a strange time too, because for the first time, we are seeing en masse a new thing where men are identifying as women as well. And so it's just a new time. It's a new time. There's all kinds of new things happening. And the only thing that I can say is that as a female, I am fighting for equal pay. And if we had equal pay, it wouldn't matter what anybody was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's ridiculous that we waste intelligent brains on trying to fight for equal pay when we could be solving much bigger and important problems together.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. That is so powerful. I think that you're right in that disparity, and also that I think we're going to see the ripples of that for a while. And it is, we're in it. Like this is a part of that battalion. And I think that what I loved about your book in that regard too, as the CEO, was you gave an example of someone who had a baby and was going through some mental health struggles, getting back into the office, and the baby having their own physical issues, and how real that is, and how you were still able to make accommodations for that. It didn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You were able to create a new path, which I think is something, and I actually discussed this with my husband, is, so many, like you said, had to come back home and do maybe a part-time or a remote position where they were only coming into the office 3 of the 5 days or 2 of the 5 days or whatever it is. And the work was still getting done. And I think that women are so capable of creating that ability. And it's just opening our eyes up to that possibility. And I think that it would be really interesting for you to share that as a CEO, how you were able to do that.
One is that I care.
Yeah.
Right. When you care, you can find solutions.
Right.
We talked about women asking for pay. But one of the things I also talk about in the book is when I'm hiring, we post a job pay range, and then I let every employee name their salary when I hire them. I'm the final interview. You have to pass all the other people whose team you're going to be on. They have to all approve of you before I ever interview. And then I say, hey, what questions do you have? Did you get all your questions answered? Interviews are two-way streets. Are you sure you want to join our company? Here's what you're signing up for. How much do you want to be paid? And then I say, great, you set the bar, jump to it every day. Cool. What I found consistently is that women ask for less pay than they should. I talk about in the book how a PhD, mom of 5, only asked me for $3,000 a year more than her bachelor husband. I'm like, you have a PhD. He has a bachelor's degree, and you think you're only worth $3,000 more.
Wow.
And so I accepted her offer as a CEO with the caveat, I'm the one who put the 90-day stipulation in. In 90 days, we review your performance and discuss your pay. And I knew I was going to already give her a raise in 90 days because she undervalued herself. And so that's when, because I am who I stand out here and tell the world I am, but behind, closed doors, I'm that same person. I had to say, listen, this is where as a female in negotiating, you went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You named the lowest price in my range. And of course, I want to save money as a CEO.
Right.
For my bottom line. Right. And I accepted it. But as a female who tries to help other women out, you went wrong by not asking what you were worth. You literally used your husband, who didn't give birth to 5 humans, while getting his PhD. And asked for $3,000 more. How much more did your PhD cost? How much more does your work experience, how much more is it worth than what he has? And she was like, it's like, oh my gosh, like, pull your hair out. And also, believe in yourself and your worth and your value, ladies. Like, it kills me when women don't understand everything that you do and contribute. We are master multitaskers, and we have to stop devaluing what we do at home and not realizing the transferable skill set to the work world.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen to that. What do you think, as far as running a business as a CEO, what are some things that you've learned that have helped you be more effective in your job?
So many things all the time. One, I hire intelligent people, so I'm always learning from them. If there's something I don't have an answer to, I go to the person that I hired that specializes in that. We collaborate, we talk, we brainstorm together. I It is my job as a CEO to listen and pick the best route. It is not my job to have all answers naturally. And I think a lot of times leaders feel like we're belittled if we don't have the answer, but we aren't. We are our strongest when we listen to the people that we have intentionally surrounded ourselves with.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. And I think that there's also power in saying, I'm not sure. Let's get into that and sort it out together, or that you'll research that or find the solutions, that you are a problem solver, but not that you have all the answers. I really like that.
Yes. And while we hope, and we really shouldn't be making a ton of mistakes, because if we are, we're likely going to lose our jobs or our companies if we're also, the owner of the company. But it's super important to, when we do make a mistake, to own it in front of the team. And it's silly. I harp on my team about reviews and never putting anything out with grammatical errors or whatnot. And one time I posted something and there was a grammatical error in it. And I'm such a stickler for it that I had to call myself out and say, guys, this is why I always say get a second set of eyes. I didn't wait for the second set of eyes. It's a bit of a situation and I jumped the gun. And it's important to say we all make mistakes, but this is why we should not skip processes.
Love it. I've noticed that you're really good at posting vertical video on social. Do you have a way that you pump out that? I mean, obviously you're a very busy mom, CEO. How are you pumping out such value-filled content consistently? What is your SOP for that? What do you do?
So it depends on how things are going. Sometimes I have a spare moment in a day and something's weighing on my mind. And so I'm just like, I've got 3 minutes. I'm going to record this video and send it. But I do have a team. It helps when you have a team.
Yes.
And what I like to do is if I can, I'll pick one day for recording and I'll do 100 videos in one day.
100? Wow. How are you coming up with that many ideas? Do you have an idea list that you work on, or does someone generate
I have an idea
list?
Yeah, I have an idea list, and then someone, whoever's recording, just sits there and says, okay, let's talk about this. And sometimes we'll record it, we'll say, oh, flip it to, this is your intro line, like the one where my cat eats Jell-O. We started it with my cat eats Jell-O. So it's just, and it takes me and two other people, one person to sit there watching the videos, they're being recorded, the other person setting up the camera and the lighting. And I just changed outfits a bunch throughout the day. So it looks like I didn't record 100 in one day, but really I did.
That's smart. And you know what I've heard social media experts say more than ever is that people don't care if you're wearing the same thing. You can still switch the shirts. But yes, I've just been really impressed with that pump out of content that I'm like, girl, you are on it. That's a really good idea to slam it out. And I think it really helps too to have someone there with you that's like, okay, let's do this one next. So you don't have to go and switch between editor to creator to person on screen, where you can kind of just be in one zone of genius, which I think helps too. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I keep that running list, and then I just kind of reorganize the list that says, hey, all these fit together. So it's a natural flow when I'm recording to talk about these things. And then
I like that.
If stuff comes up throughout the day when we're recording, we're like, hey, we'll tack that on at the end. Write it down. We'll tack that on at the end. Because sometimes, you're taking a 5-minute break and you're just talking about random stuff or checking an email and something comes up and you're like, oh, we should talk about that.
Ooh, I like that. In the book a lot, you talk about creating time for yourself and keeping your mental health in check. I marked a spot right here. Let's see if I can grab it real quick. Ooh, no. Okay, I'm going to come back to that one, because the one that I just found that I marked was about decision fatigue. And I believe that this is so real. And it says, keep your head clear until you've made all your major decisions for the day ahead, or at least as many of them as possible. If you're not careful, 100 small decisions will use up all of your brain power before you manage to make a handful of big ones. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Yes. So do you have a way that you organize your day? Do you have a morning routine that you do to help you execute that? Or what does that look like?
So because I'm a mom, like many moms, we've got responsibilities in the morning. So I try to keep things as much routine as possible. One is that help with a toddler have a routine.
Yes.
But I try to lay out my clothes the night before. I have my workout clothes ready to go. My outfit for the day is already picked out. That is not something I need to spend any power thinking about. My coffee pot's set on a timer. Everything just flows. And then if I have a toddler meltdown, I just, have a seat, give it 5 minutes, and then out the door we go. So I try to remove as many decisions as possible. I do not ever get on Instagram or any social media first thing in the morning, because you will be surprised at how much brain power it zaps. And I don't check my emails unless I'm expecting something that will change the flow of my day. Otherwise, those things have to wait until later in the day. Once I get my kid to school, for me, my flow has to go a little backwards. I would rather work out first thing, but instead I've got to get my kid up, my kid ready, my kid to school. Then I hit the gym. It's a home gym. I hit my home gym, and then I go right into like my morning flow. So I make sure that the morning things get done that require the biggest amount of my brain power, the big decision making. Then I check all my Slack messages before I check my emails, because that's my team communicating. I don't want my team held up because I'm not responding to them.
I like it. So that kind of feeds into that other question that I have about taking time for yourself and your mental energy and taking care of your workout needs and your mental health. What are some things that have helped you? Do you have any favorite apps that you like, or workouts that you do, or mantras that you say?
So one, I think it's really important to find out what works for you, right? Like I've listened to people talk about like, oh, I love this meditation app, or, oh, I love doing this workout. Those things have never worked for me. I am one, I love to run. I don't actually love to run. I love the way I feel after I run.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting because I used to live on the ocean front. And so I ran the beach every morning for years. I've now moved, and I live on the intercoastal waterway now, and I should not complain at all, but it's different. It's changed my workout. Where I am, there's coyotes in my neighborhood. I can't run in the dark in the morning. So it's changed. I don't run as often, and I'm doing more of weightlifting, and it's changed the way, like I have to adjust my thinking. I honestly used to run so hard that I couldn't think about anything but breathing. And it was great for my well-being, because I have a hard time turning it off. Like even when I'm lying down at night, I could stay up all night just thinking about all the things in my head. So I have to consciously tell myself, acknowledge, let go, until I fall asleep. But what I think is super important is that we have to figure out the things that work for us and be consistent on them. Everyone falls off the wagon from time to time. I just recently did. It's so hard to be consistent for years on end. I have had a good, probably, I don't know, about a 3-year run. And just yesterday, crashed hard. My book was published March 7th. We hit the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list. Because of that, all these opportunities started rolling in. I'm the CEO of a tech company I don't own that's, really successful, that's going 100 miles per hour. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of a media agency that's doing really well. I started a new startup last November, Hesla Trades, and its startups are work. And then I had this book launch, and then all these opportunities are coming that you don't want to say no to. And then my daughter's been sick. And so like all these things have just been happening. And I am good at saying no to things that don't support my end goal. But all these things that have been coming in have been supportive of my end goal. And I forgot to say no when it's not good for your own well-being. And I mean, when I tell you I hit a brick wall, like there wasn't a thing on my body that didn't hurt. 2 days ago, like I could feel my fingernails. I could feel everything. I was in excruciating pain. And then I slept for 13 hours. I don't normally sleep more than 5 hours. I slept for 13 hours, woke up, got my team going for 30 minutes, went back to sleep for another 5 hours, could not stand up. I was so tired. And that was my own fault. And like silly. Like I said, we all fall off the wagon. I'm back to like knowing, hey, I know better. I've got to start saying no to some things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for saying yes to this and being here. That's a lot. That's a lot of things going on. Are you doing all of these positions remotely, or how are you managing all of these different teams and businesses?
Yes. So I have always run my teams remotely. Always. JVZoo started 12 years ago and it's always been a remote company. We have office locations. If you want to come into the office, you need an office atmosphere, cool, come in. And like sometimes I'll even say, hey, for the next 6 weeks, we're doing a workout every day at 4 o'clock if you want to join on the workout. And that's a fun thing to do. But I just think that if you hire responsible adults, they don't need to be in an office because we don't run a company that's like a medical company or a need for someone to be there face to face. And for the most part, we hire great. And every now and again, we have someone that says, I need more micromanaging, like I want it, I need it. And we help those people find some place that's into middle management and micromanagement. We're just not. And I am not. I've said it all the time. I'm not your mom. Like I have one kid now. Yeah. Not your mom.
I love it. Well, this has been so helpful. I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure the people listening have learned a lot. Where else can we connect with you online?
Oh, you can go to my website, lauracasselman.com. All my social media is connected there. I usually do check my Instagram once a day. I'm on TikTok and all those other things too, but everything's connected to my website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful things. And you can, of course, buy this book, Trust Your Increments, anywhere, Amazon, wherever books are sold. And it's awesome. So thanks again. It was such a pleasure to interview you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, CEOs, thank you so much for spending your time with me. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please let me know in a comment and a 5-star review. You could have the chance of being a featured review on an upcoming episode. Continue the conversation on Instagram at Call Me CEO Podcast. And remember, you are the boss.